podcasting has been around for about 15, 20 years now, and it has really taken off in the last 5 years, I would say, as more and more people are getting into audiobooks and just any audio consumption type of material. And simply because everyone seems to be coming out with some audio. I mean, how easy is it to press record with your phone and record your voice? It's really quite simple to create a podcast. Anyone can do it. So you can thank cell phones as another reason why podcasting has taken off. The fact is it's also a free medium. You can get any kind of information, and the material has gotten so incredibly well done in terms of the quality that the content out there that's free, it should be something that people charge for. Of course, they have sponsors and advertisers on their platform so that they can make money. What I noticed, probably over the last 5 years, is that I was consuming podcasts like crazy. Yeah, I would spend 3-4 hours per day listening to podcast material, and it was just nonstop. I would fall asleep to a podcast. I would start my morning with a podcast. My lunchtime, I was listening to podcasts. I was just continuing to consume podcasts. And then I thought to myself, is this even healthy? Or has this gotten to a point of addiction because it's free material? It's incredibly well done in terms of the material. The quality is outstanding. You couldn't even get this kind of quality on a paid platform. So I'm thinking, well, this is all free, but maybe I'm consuming it too much. One podcast in particular that I got a bit obsessed about is the Joe Rogan podcast. And he would have a guest on, and it would be at least 2.5 hours, 3 hours sometimes. Some of them are 4 hours long. And I would just listen. I would just passively sort of listen no matter what I was doing. I would just continue to listen. And then I realized, I don't know if this is that healthy. Because there is a conversation going on, but I'm actually not involved. I'm just listening. I'm not verbally talking. I'm not cognitively getting involved. And what I noticed is that this podcast was just substituting for behavior that I should have been doing. Social behavior, talking, or creating my own thing, right? Creating my own podcast. Sure. I mean, this video that I'm creating here is going to be in podcast format as well. So, and I'll have it on my blog. So I've got material here that's audio format. Because, well, do people just watch videos? No. Especially if they're in their car. You can't watch a video in your car. That's why podcasting is taking off. Because you can listen wherever you go. And it's very easy to consume. And I noticed, back to this podcast, as any of these shows, it's like a two-way conversation, so interview style. And I would listen and think that this is great. This is fantastic for me. I'm learning lots about things that I'll never probably talk about, but I'm learning lots from others, and it's fantastic. But here's the problem. I'm listening, but I'm not actually being involved in the conversation. And maybe it makes me feel less lonely that I'm listening to this. So maybe this is why people like podcasts. Is because when they're alone, they feel like somebody's with them. And that's why it's helpful. This is why podcasting is really helpful to people. But where it gets to be a little bit problematic is when maybe people depend on podcasts as a substitute for social behavior. And I'm seeing this because how many people will you talk to who listen for hours and hours, who are absolutely addicted, whether it be on YouTube or podcasts, this consumption of material. We're seeing a migration from television watching over to podcasting and YouTube. So we're seeing a lot more consumption there. And then you also have Netflix, and that can be streamed anywhere. It could be on your TV or phone or what have you. So we're seeing migrations of how we consume material. But I look at podcasting as an entertainment thing, just like video games, and it can become an addiction, especially if you're addicted to learning. You might get into it a bit more. And is it a problem? I don't know if it's really too big of a problem. There are worse addictions, obviously. But where I see the problem is if someone is not being social at all because they're obsessed with the podcast. And what I did is I just retired from listening to podcasts. I don't have the app anymore. I deleted the podcast app, even though it's free and I don't pay anything for it. I deleted the app and I decided I'm not going to listen to podcasts anymore because I'm a little conscious about how I spend my time, and I realize that I can get really deep into podcasts. And I can end up spending a lot of time listening, but not actually thinking about things. Just taking a break and reflecting on my own thoughts, because I think that's important. Yeah, with the podcasting, it got pretty obsessive for me. Now, if you can get it to a point where you're only listening like 30 minutes a day and it's not a big deal, it doesn't take up a chunk of your time, I don't see it as a problem. I think you can continue and go about your day and you're perfectly fine. I'm only talking about the obsessive people like myself who maybe get into things a little in depth and need to take a step back. So are podcasts healthy? It depends. How are you consuming this? How are you spending your time? How are you socializing with others? Are you using this as a way to justify conversations that you're actually not having? I've talked about loneliness in other videos, and I think that's important to have a connection with people. Try your best to connect somehow. And if you are listening to podcasts and thinking this is a form of social behavior, it is not. It's just you listening. It's two people talking and you're not in the conversation. So that's this is where I caution people. And we aren't really talking about this. We're just letting people consume this content without actually talking about it. And I guess I bring this up because I see the Netflix culture. I see the increase in different media outlets. And I'm concerned that we're spending all this time in all these different areas and not actually having real conversations. So I'm hoping that you have some sort of restriction. I mean, there are app restrictions. Of course, me deleting my app kind of helped me because now I'm not consuming it so much. If I see something that takes up a lot of my time, then I will cut it out of my life. I'm pretty adamant about that. And when it comes to that, podcasting, it's kind of ironic because I'm creating a podcast and I'm putting out content. Of course, I don't want people to be spending hours and hours watching me, funny enough. I'm not really big into that. I don't want people listening to me for hours and hours. Unless that somehow benefits them, like maybe this is an education. You've chunked out time to educate yourself. You've chunked out time to understand a little bit more about the world. Then maybe you're scheduling X amount of hours to consume this material. As long as you have a cap on this. Because what I'm finding is a lot of people are Netflix binging. They're binging on podcasts. They're just going crazy with it. Or they'll spend an entire day and that's all they'll do. And it just becomes an obsession. That's all I would caution. So are podcasts healthy? It depends. It really depends. How you're consuming it, how long you're consuming it for, whether it's taking away from other things that you should be doing in your life. That's all stuff that only you can really answer. But if you feel like it's taking over, then you might need to look at ways of cutting down. Yes. Because too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. Everything in moderation, even moderation, right? So that's all stuff to consider. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time. Toodles.